Hello scientific writers! In this video I would like to talk about what to do after a rejection, journal submission for a grant proposal. Let's first talk about journal manuscript rejections. When you get a rejection, and if you submit multiple papers, you're going to get a rejection. Recognize that it's going to hurt, but it's normal. I've had most of my papers rejected on the first try. At least 80% of first submissions to scientific journals get rejected. Even the best scientists are going to get papers rejected. So when you get that email from the journal editor and it says, "I am sorry to inform you, but your paper cannot be accepted at this time," the first thing you need to do is really carefully read what the editor says in that decision letter, because sometimes a rejection is a rejection. We don't want to see this paper ever again. Send it somewhere else and don't bother us. Other times the decision is still rejection, but there's some encouragement in the letter. And so what that means, if you read between the lines, is we're rejecting your paper right now, but if you fix it up and send it back to us, we'll look at it again. Now sometimes the editors will say this directly to you, and some journals might even have a decision that's something like reject and resubmit, but sometimes it's not that clear and it's a little bit hard to interpret. And I've had situations where I actually emailed the editor and asked them, is this a hard rejection or is this a reject and resubmit? I can't really tell from the way the letter is written. And they'll give you an answer most of the time. Now, if it is a reject and resubmit, then that's not so bad. You still have a decent chance of getting published in that journal. So if you have a reject and resubmit, what you need to do is very carefully go through the reviewer comments and don't dismiss their comments, even if they seem ridiculous at first. Really think about why they're saying what they're saying. Then go back and revise and edit your manuscript to address those comments and resubmit it to the journal. Depending on the journal's process, you might have an opportunity to do a line-by-line response to the reviewers, or they might ask you to resubmit it as a completely new manuscript. So find out what the journal wants and do it the way they ask you to. Now, if your rejection is a hard reject, you have two options here. One is to try to persuade the editor that that's a wrong decision. This rarely works. Most of the time, the editor is not going to be persuaded at all. Why would they reconsider? If one of the reviewers made a mistake, they completely misunderstood something that you were saying, and that happens on some occasions. It's not very common, but sometimes reviewers do make a big mistake. And if you can point that out to the editor, they might reconsider their decision, or they might get another reviewer to come in and take an additional look at it to give another opinion. Taking this approach and arguing to the editor that they should reconsider almost never works. Option 2 is to choose a different journal. So change your target journal and just the same day immediately send your manuscript over to them. Now, this is also not a very good option because even if you could reformat everything and send it over the same day, it's not a very good option because of a couple reasons. One is you might get the same reviewer the next time and they're going to see that you didn't change anything and they're going to give you a bad review, maybe even a more harsh review than they did the first time. The second reason it's a bad idea is because you can learn from the reviewer's comments. Even when you got a hard rejection, there's going to be some very useful advice in those reviewers' comments. If you're going to send it to another journal, I would recommend that you don't send it exactly as it was before, but you go through the reviewers' comments, revise and edit your manuscript the best that you can, and then send it to that next journal. The fourth option for you is to just give up and throw the paper in the trash. It's not a very good option because you did all that work to write the paper. I wouldn't just give up on it unless you're just changing careers and it doesn't matter to you anymore, or if the reviewers found something that's such a major flaw in your study design that you realize that it's not worth publishing it. And that might happen. You might realize that you did something completely wrong and that your results are not valid, in which case I would probably scrap most of the paper, see if I could salvage some of the experiments. Now, when your grant application was rejected or declined, there's not much of an option to appeal to the panel manager. You can tell them that the reviewers made a big mistake, they completely misunderstood something, and they should reconsider. But, with most agencies, it's not even possible to do that because the ship has sailed. The time has passed, and the process has already happened, and they can't go back and reconvene the panel or get new reviewers. You just have to submit on the next cycle. Your best bet is, similar to the journal manuscript, read the reviewer's comments, think about them very carefully, fix up your proposal, and resubmit it on the next cycle, or reformat it and submit it to another agency that has a similar mission and would fund that work. Now, you might have to do some major revisions because the agency's missions might overlap a little bit, but they're not going to overlap enough that you can just send that proposal to a different agency. And of course, you still have the fourth option of giving up. Now, I think that's more feasible for a grant proposal or a fellowship proposal where maybe it was just based on some ideas, you haven't invested a lot of work into it at this point, and so walking away is not going to hurt you that much. Sometimes that might be a good option, but most of the time I would say be persistent, stick with it, and try again. All right, I hope that was helpful. I will see you next time, and happy writing.